Hello everybody and welcome back to On Point HQ and another army building video. This one's going to be slightly different to the last one that I did. So in that video, I'll pop a link to it in the description below. I used the Armies of Germany book to build a Stalingrad themed army on the using the Death on the Volga theatre selector. So this video is going to be a bit different, and what we're going to be looking at is building an army using one of the campaign books. So what is a campaign book? Now these are slightly different to the armies of books that Warlord Games have released, and they're often focused or concentrated on a specific conflict or period or time of World War II. And there's often different units and different theatre selectors within these campaign books that you can use to build your armies. What the big difference is that the armies in these campaign books, they're not the most competitive when put up against armies from the armies of books. But I'll get onto that in a bit more detail later on. But what I'm going to be doing is using the campaign book, The Road to Berlin. So this is, in a nutshell, really, it's from 1943 onwards, when the war had turned in the east, and the Soviets were advancing west into Germany, and there's several new units, new theatre selectors, and scenarios to play using these theatre selectors. But what I'm going to be doing is showing you how I go about using these campaign book theatre selectors to put together an army that's really full of character. It's not going to be competitive by any stretch of the imagination, but it's going to give me a chance to build a really unique little force that for me will be challenging to play, but would also give me that feel, that ethos, that character of that particular period. So let's get on to this. What I'm going to be doing is using a theatre selector called Forlorn Hope. Now this is the Forlorn Hope theatre selector. It's really focusing on units from Operation Bagration onwards. So there's still troops there, but they're not the best quality. They're not the most reliable. And this list is going to be built to reflect that type of troop that was available at the time. Now the Forlorn Hope theatre selector has one special rule, and that is you can't take any veteran options. Except for panzer divisions, so things like armoured cars, tanks, tank destroyers, etc, etc. They can be taken as veteran, but your standard HQ, your infantry section, your support options can only be regular or inexperienced. Now again, straight away this makes you think, how am I going to balance, what troop types am I going to use when building this list? So apart from that, that's the only real rule within the theatre selector. So what I'm going to do now is build a 1,000 point list using the theatre selector in the Road to Berlin book. That's hopefully going to be full of character. So let's start off. So as with most theatre selectors, there are some mandatory troop choices that you have to take for this theatre selector, and that's going to be, with most, it's going to be HQ section and 2 infantry sections. So let's have a look at what we want here. So the HQ, normally if I was building a list to play a game of bolt action with, I'd ordinarily take a veteran first lieutenant. With this, slightly different. I'm going to go with a regular second lieutenant. The story behind this is that you imagine he's been hastily promoted. He knows his way around a battlefield. He's fresh to being an officer. And I think just treat him as regular, a regular second lieutenant. I think that would really fit in with what I'm going for this army. So he needs an assistant or 2. What I always do, I always keep my HQs down to 2-man sections. Just so I can benefit from the small team rule, but also I just like the idea of an officer with just one assistant, 1 adjutant. So for this, we're going to add 1 assistant, which comes in at 60 points. So points on the board already, we've got 60 points, that's our HQ sorted. Now the the mandatory infantry section choices for this theatre selector quite limited. We have a Heer Grenadier section or a late war SS section. So what I decided to do is take one of each type. So let's start with the Heer Grenadier section first. I'm taking these as regular rather than experienced. I would have the option of taking them as an experienced, but I'm going to take them as regular. Because I'm going to need two sections that are going to be the mainstay units of this force. So with the Grenadier, let's see how we build these. So straight off, we're going to pay an extra 50 points to give 5 extra men, make it into a 10-man section. And then I'm going to add 2 SMGs for a cost of 6 points, 2 assault rifles for a cost of 10 points, 1 light machine gun team for a cost of 20 points, and then 2 Panzerfausts for the cost of 10 points. This brings in this section at 146 points. It's a good start. It's from a thematic point of view. Yep, we're starting with Grenadiers. They'd likely be the kind of troops you'd see in the field at this stage. So that's my first infantry section out the way. Now I could opt to take a second Heer Grenadier section. What I've chosen to do instead is take a late war Waffen SS section. Now the weird thing with this is that in the Army of Germany book, these guys are all veteran, but I can't take them as veteran in this list, so I'm paying a point for veterans, but I've got to run them as regular. So let's start off let's see how we're going to put this unit together. So we're going to pay an extra 65 points straight away to increase the unit to 10 men. An extra 15 points are going to be added to add 3 assault rifles to the section. Something I always do with my SS sections, I always give them 2 light machine guns. I'm going to do that with this section for a cost of 40 points. And the reason I do this, it gives the unit lots of kind of tactical flexibility. You can use them in defence, you can use them in attack, and they also benefit from the extra dice from the national characteristic, where light machine guns and medium machine guns get the extra dice added to it. What I've also done as well is, now I did think about this to see whether it would fit into the ethos or not, was I've chosen to pay 30 points to make the entire section fanatic. I always like to take my SS sections as fanatic sections just to give them that kind of edge in combat and sort of differentiate or separate them out from the rest of their peers. But I think it fits in quite well with what I'm trying to achieve with this army list. So now that's the mandatory troop choices out of the way. What's next? Now there's quite a few troop choices you can take for additional infantry sections. Now they're not the best, I'll be honest, and they are going to be all taken at inexperienced or regular. So I've opted for 2. Now the first one I've taken is a Luftwaffe Field Division section. Now this is going to be run at inexperienced. Now with this, I'm using the entry from the Battleground Europe book rather than the Armies of Germany book. This allows me to take a light machine gun team with the Luftwaffe Field Division section. So let's have a look at how we build this unit. So again, 35 extra points to bump the section up to 10 men. An extra 6 points to add 2 SMGs to the section. That's 1 to the NCO and 1 to another dude in that section. And then a further 20 points for the light machine gun team. This brings us in at 96 points for this section. Like I mentioned before, these are being run as inexperienced, so they're not going to be the most reliable troops when the going gets tough. So I want to add 1 more infantry section to this army. I decided again to stick with the ethos rather than going with more reliable troop choices. I've chosen to include this. Now this is a unit of Osttruppen. So these guys are sort of conscripts from the Eastern Territories that have sort of been press ganged or volunteers into the German army. They're not the greatest quality of troop, and this is reflected in their rules, which I'll get to in a second. So these are being taken as inexperienced. We're going to pay an extra 20 points to increase the section to 10 men. We're going to give the NCO a submachine gun and an extra 20 points for a light machine gun. Gives us a total of 63 points. Now Osttruppen are they have the Shirkers rule. Now what do Shirkers do? This demonstrates sort of their inconsistency and their sort of the poor quality of troop they are. So they always have to take an order test regardless of whether they have pins or not. So to do anything they must take an order test, and when they do take pins, all those pins count as double. So as far as reliability goes, these guys really aren't the ones you should be looking to. But that gives me my 4 infantry sections for a total cost of 520 points. So that's 580 points for the entire army. So more than 50% of the points have been sunk into 4 infantry sections and the HQ. So let's move on to unit support. Again, quite a few options here. What I'm looking for is not really how effective on the tabletop they're going to be, but rather do they fit into the background, to the character or the flavour of this army. So the first one is something I wouldn't normally take in a list, and that's a medium machine gun team. I think the reason I'm taking this is that it's evocative. It's when you think of sort of German armies, you always think of masses of machine guns. Now there's an option to take 2 medium machine gun teams. What I've done is I've opted to take 1. I'm going to run this as inexperienced. Again, in my mind, they're just hastily conscripted troops. They've just been stuck behind a medium machine gun team and thought, there we go, guys. There's the enemy. Crack on. I just really like that ethos or that kind of background to each unit. Now with the second support option, I did think, what did I want to add now to really give it that bit of character? Now I've actually opted for this, which is a Panzerschreck. Again, for me it's very evocative of sort of late war German lists, and when you look at the reference material and the photographs, there's Panzerschreck being wielded by inexperienced soldiers. So that's what I've done here. Is I've paid 56 points to add an inexperienced Panzerschreck team. So I'm going to leave the support options at that and move on to sort of anti-tank and vehicles now. My next choice, I'm adding this just because I like I just like this edition. It's a Pack 40. This is one of my favourite models I've ever made, and so I always try and include it in any German armies that I take, just because it looks so cool. And what I'm doing as well, I'm paying the points to take this as a regular unit. So that's 110 points for a Pack 40. Gives me a bit more reliability, and I like the idea of the crew being sort of not veterans, but they've been around the block a bit. They've been in combat before and they sort of know what they're doing. Now with the Pack 40 taken, the next option is sort of forced upon me. Now the Pack 40 is a heavy anti-tank gun, which means I need a tow to move it onto and around the battlefield. So I've chosen to take this, which is a Multia, a half track, paying the least amount of points as I can, inexperienced, 35 points. It will do a job. It will allow me to move the Pack 40 onto the table, and if needs be, move it round. I've got one choice left, and I've only got the points to take one other option, and for me it really is evocative of German armies in bolt action, and when you look at the reference material from the period. And I'm going to be taking a Stug 3. Again, taking this as inexperienced, is 184 points. Now, again, the reason for taking it as inexperienced is, one, we're limited for points here, but two, again, I like the idea of this crew being, just fresh out of training, shoved into a Stug and pointed towards the enemy. I think that goes, again, it gives that real flavour and character to the army. So with the addition of the Stug 3, that's the completed army. So that comes in at exactly 1,000 points and 10 order dice, which for me is really good. It's given me a nice number of order dice. I've got to the points that I was hoping to get to, and the additions that I've made to the army aren't to win the game, but it's really to give me an army that I think, it's going to be challenging to play, but it also has that kind of the flavour that I'm aiming for, the background, the character, etc. What I would say is the list competitive? Absolutely not. I think if I was to put this up against any other list from the Armies of books, it would get defeated quite soundly. It might do okay against other lists from the campaign book, but for me, it's having that army full of character, and it's being challenging. It will be a challenge to play this in a game of bolt action. And for me, I'm not a competitive player. I would rather just have a lot of fun when I'm playing bolt action or any other tabletop game. But these campaign books and the theatre selectors in there really allow you to pick out units from your collection you wouldn't normally get to use. So that's what I've done here with my my Osttruppen and my Luftwaffe field division sections. Not something I'd normally use, but in this list, certainly allows me to take these as unit choices. Well, I hope you find that video interesting. Again, the aim here is to show you that you can use the different theatre selectors from across the campaign books to construct some really interesting and unique, diverse armies. Again, I'm going to reiterate, they're not the most competitive when you're playing against standard reinforced platoons from the armies of books, but they'll be really fun to play and should give you some great gaming memories. If you've got any comments or questions, leave them down below and I'll certainly respond to all comments and questions. But as always, thanks for watching, do take care, may your dice roll well, and I'll catch you all in the next video. So bye bye for now.